Instead, the cheetah let out a stream of urine, hitting the little boy in the mouth and quickly shutting him up. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Quora Zone, and today we'll be reading from what was the most satisfying display of instant karma you've ever seen. Our next post is from Rakesh Lau. We were going to China on a trip to visit Beijing, Shanghai, Chengdu, and Xi'an. At the New Delhi airport, there was a group of Chinese tourists who were returning to China after visiting India. They were asked to fill some forms and were struggling to fill it in English. One of them requested me, and I happily obliged. Soon there was a small line of Chinese tourists getting their forms filled by me. I don't mind, as my flight was not leaving for the next 2 hours. We reached Beijing and realized that the hotel cab that was supposed to pick us up was nowhere to be seen. We tried calling the hotel reception, but they did not have an English-speaking staff on that night. For people who have not visited China, you should know that hotels have different addresses and names written in Chinese and English. If you're not carrying a Chinese name and address, it is very difficult to ask for directions. New to China, we felt stuck and helpless at airport. Then we saw the entire group of tourists I had helped. Seeing me and my wife, they waved and asked if we needed any help. They immediately made a call to the hotel reception and explained the situation in Chinese. They also waited until our cab from the hotel arrived at the airport. I really believe that was one act of kindness that was immediately returned back to me as an instant karma. Our next post is from Harold Green. My first wife for 20 years left me when I had a health issue. She said she wanted her freedom to live her life. I suppose she didn't want to be stuck with me if she had to take care of me. I recovered. She quickly married a bar hookup who refused to work and for the next 30 years had to support them both. I don't think he was the type to clean house or cook either. Our kids remain with me and I've never been all that close to their mother after she left, so she lost out on a husband who loved her and always provided for her, so she didn't even need to work unless she wanted to. She lost out on our close relationship to her kids and grandkids. Today at 71, she's widowed and still having to work to support herself. My second wife and I both retired 14 years ago and enjoy every moment together, and I see my kids and grandkids most weekends. Our next post is from Dimple. I was taking a night train home from work in Chicago when it was cold and raining heavily that night. I had a monthly train pass as well as per ride pass. In that train, there was another foreign passenger. He didn't speak English nor had a train ticket. The train conductor stopped in our section and realized the foreigner didn't have a train ticket. As a result, he asked him to get off the next station. I felt bad for the guy because it was raining, cold, and he didn't speak English. I asked the conductor to use my per ride pass for the guy. The conductor asked, "Why did you do that? Do you know the guy?" I said, "I didn't know him, but I know it's not fun to be in such a situation. Who knows, maybe someday I might be in his situation and someone will help me." A few months later, I took a weekend train to work and forgot my purse in my workplace. The conductor is not the usual person, so the new person didn't trust that in a frequent wife. Didn't trust that in a frequent wife. Didn't trust that in a frequent wife. Didn't trust that. So the new person didn't trust that in a frequent rider, he asked I get off the next station. Then suddenly a man comes and asks the conductor to use his per train pass on me. I thanked him and he said, "No problem, maybe someday, when I'm in need, someone will help me." Those words gave me goosebumps as it was the exact words I conveyed a few months ago. In that moment, I knew that what you do, whether good or bad, comes back to you, the law of karma. Our next post is from Alf Git. My wife was paying at the grocery store when I became aware of a young teenager crawling on the floor around her feet. She then got up and walked away. Then a woman approached and told my wife that she had dropped a $5 bill and the child had stolen it. My wife went after her and asked for her money back, but the child quickly insisted that it was her $5 bill and just kept walking. As the girl walked away, my wife saw a $10 bill fall out of her pocket, so she picked it up and we left. Our next post is from Susan Gines. This was during the 1980s. I'd taken my niece to the zoo mainly for the exercise and fresh air. She was around a year old and in a stroller. I stopped at a bench in front of the big cat cages. At this time, they were kept in small enclosures, most with a ledge and a water source. There wasn't really much room for them to walk around. Most of the big cats slept up on the ledges, rarely coming down to be seen. In front of the cheetah cage was a little boy. His parents were sitting on the other end of the bench that I was on. They were talking to each other while keeping an eye on their son. It surely wasn't necessary, as the whole time he stood in front of the cheetah cage yelling, "Cheetah! Cheetah! Cheetah!" like a baseball player would yell, "Batter! Batter! Batter!" This went on for around 10 minutes and was becoming annoying. I was beginning to rethink my decision to stop and sit on the bench. This is when the cheetah came down off the ledge. This little boy jumped up and down in excitement, never stopping his chant. He motioned for his parents to come over and to see that he got the cheetah to come down off the ledge. They went and stood by him. The cheetah languidly walked back and forth in front of them as the little boy continued his chant. The cheetah then turned around, looking like he was about to go back onto his ledge. Instead, the cheetah let out a stream of urine, hitting the little boy in the mouth and quickly shutting him up. The look on his and his parents' faces were priceless. That is crazy, bro. What the hell? Our next post is from Ken Williams. My wife and I were at a local casino and they were offering random cash prizes. Once per night, simply swap your player's card to see if you win something. As we were walking up to a player's card machine, some guy rudely cast off to get in front of us. He won nothing. My wife then swiped her card and won $500. The look on his face was worth way more than the money. $500 is so lucky. Can you guys let me know in the comments what is the most amount of money you guys have, won from a local casino in the comments? Even at a pokies machine. Just, that is a whole lot of random luck right there. Our next post is from Anne. When I was with my ex-husband, I used to bug him to go to the dentist. I had great benefits and he had never had coverage before. After being married for only 18 months, I learned he had cheated on me with at least one woman. My heart was shattered as I moved out. At work, I asked HR to remove him from my benefits so my deduction would go down. After a couple of months, he calls me at work and just doesn't sound like his usual self. I was polite and professional and asked how he was doing. Turns out he had a once-in-a-lifetime toothache that kept him up all night. Then he asked the million-dollar question. I need to go to the dentist. How does our benefit plan work? I had such a hard time maintaining my composure. Oh, how I wanted to laugh and clap my hands in joy. Instead, I calmly replied that he was no longer on my benefit plan. What? We're still married? Even though he never grasped the concept of monogamy, I informed him that benefits cost money and I needed every cent I earned. Then I wished him luck and said goodbye. It was a good day. A very good day indeed. Our next post is from Kim Cole. My second son was a toddler and we were on our way to meet friends at a soft play centre. I always stopped off on the way at the local garage and got a large coffee. There was a short zebra crossing from the parking area to the shop, and a young girl in a convertible parked across it. Son was walking holding my hand and I said, Did you have to block the crossing? Too bad, you fat cow. You flounced off into the shop. Coffee in a cup holder, I watched it pull away between a lorry and at the bollards at the shop front and scraped the side of a pale blue car against the side of the lorry. I almost wet myself laughing so hard and loud enough that she heard me. The driver of the lorry, who had watched this with amusement, looked across at me and said, At least us fatties can drive. Our next post is from Ted Stanley. Stanley?
Jonathan, the Jonah?
Stanley.
Some years ago, my wife and I were shopping in a local supermarket. We didn't have a lot in the trolley and spotted a line that was apparently free. On getting there, we saw a full trolley some feet away from the belt with no one anywhere in sight. We had just started putting the shopping in the belt when a woman barged up and started taking our stuff off. I'm before you! She screamed, despite our saying she should have stayed with the trolley rather than continue her shopping. She was being petulant and petty, and we saw another checkout opening, so we went there. We were out quite quickly. We were loading our car when she bustled out and loose loaded her shopping into the back of a Land Rover. Sadly, she forgot to close the rear door properly, and as she sped out of the car park and turned onto the main road, the rear door flew open and all her groceries crashed out of the car and went all over the road. Bro, this reminds me of a story. I work at Woolworths. I work in the online department, and this Uber driver, I don't think he got his order in time, and he had his boot open, and I saw him on the camera, like just this car drive past with the boot wide open. So I opened up the door and I could see him heading towards the roundabout with his boot still like wide open. And I was like, does he not check his rearview mirror when he's driving and see that his boot is still up? Like, I really wanted to see his reaction once he finally realized, like, oh shit, my boot is open. Our next post is from Bunny Silver Square. My grandpa worked at a sawmill for years. While he worked there, he noticed all the guys liked ragging on a coworker named Joe. Joe had a hard life. He was older, married with grown kids, was always pleasant, and he was an exemplary employee, which pissed off the guys as it made them look bad. Apparently, Joe always blew all his money on lotto tickets, and he was an idiot to do so because it was dumb to dream he would ever win, blah blah blah. This never swayed Joe. He enjoyed playing lotto. Well, one day, Joe never showed up to work. I bet you can guess what happened. Everyone assumed he was sick, or worse. Nope, he won the lotto. Now, this was back in the 1970s. It would be equivalent to 1.5 million nowadays. Back then, it was quite a windfall. All those guys who had ridiculed Joe before were now trying to be his buddy as he came around to collect his final paycheck. But Joe never rubbed it in. He was nice enough to help a fellow coworker with some money to start his own company. The guy had a severe allergy to cedar, so he desperately needed a way out of that career choice. Joe built his dream house on a ranch and retired with his family at his side. He collected old cars and enjoyed his life to the fullest. My grandpa went to visit him one summer and said the money never changed him. He still worked hard, stayed humbled, and funny enough, he still continued to test his luck at Lotto. After this, they made a Lotto pool at the mill. Of course, all the guys joined in. Come on. Our next post is from Dinish Dinan. I was a 13 years old chubby kid. Went through a lot of fat shaming, but I distinctly remember this teacher of mine at 7th grade who would always address me Gunda, meaning fatty in my local language. I even spoke to her one day and asked her not to call me fat, but my name since other kids followed her, but she ignored and continued. The years passed by and I'm at college. My teen years transformed me into an athlete. One fine day I was at the groceries, and guess who I met? Yes, it is the same Miss 7th grade teacher, her chubby, overweight son standing right beside her. She didn't recognize me initially, but I reminded her that I am a Gunda student. She gave me an awkward smile, grabbed her son's hand, and stormed out of the store. One of the most satisfying days in my life. Our next post is from Amara Etienne. I cannot pronounce these last names, guys. I am so sorry. I saw karma affect a person in about 10 minutes. One Saturday morning in the late 80s, my then fiance, now husband, and I stopped to eat breakfast at a McDonald's in downtown Los Angeles. We had planned to spend the day shopping for bargains in LA's famous fashion district. While waiting in line to place our order, I suddenly became aware of a young woman in the line next to me, swearing to a friend in an agitated, perturbed manner. As I listened, I was startled to hear that I was the subject of her disgust, or rather, my purse was. You see, I was wearing a Gucci purse over my right shoulder, and the woman was telling her friend that it wasn't real, that I should be ashamed to wear such a fake-ass purse. That she was a connoisseur of designer purses and owned many, along with several other invectives, attacking my character and social status for carrying such an insulting object. Since she wasn't speaking to me directly and appeared to be quite upset by me and my purse, I decided to ignore her rather than show her proof that my handbag was indeed an authentic Gucci. It had been purchased for me by my cousin, a fashion design student at the House of Gucci, while visiting Italy on a European field trip with her classmates earlier that year. I had given her money for the purse and she brought it back for me. I never owned a designer purse before, but because the US currency exchange was high at the time, I waited. I might luck out and be able to afford such a souvenir from Italy. I later saw the same purse for sale at a Nordstrom in the South Bay here in Southern California, so I was able to verify that it wasn't a knockoff. I really wanted to explain to the woman the details of how, why, where, and when my purse was acquired, but I reasoned that a person wouldn't denigrate a stranger because of the handbag she was wearing probably wasn't too rational, and therefore wouldn't appreciate my educating her on what a real Gucci purse actually looked like, even though I wasn't really an expert. Subsequently, the woman's next move concerned I was sitting next to a narcissist, but when she got to the counter to order, she leaned forward and extended her left arm out about a foot from me. I realized she was showing me the 4 or 5 rings on her hands, which each contained small diamonds. By then, I was bemused by her performance. She didn't know me, communicating her belief that she was of a higher social standing than I. After that, I turned towards my fiancé, had spoken next to him as he placed our food order, not telling him about the bizarre attack I had just undergone. Here's where karma visited. After collecting our food, we stayed inside and sat at a table next to a window with my back to the window. About 5 minutes later, while talking and eating, we were interrupted by the sound of a car's engine starting and stopping multiple times. I turned around to witness those same 2 females from the line now, seated in a very old, dilapidated, oxidized, small grey car in the parking lot that the woman who had hated on me and my purse was trying to start. When she saw me turn around to look at her, she placed her right hand over her face and looked down in embarrassment, all the while continuing to try to start her car without success. At that moment, what did I do? How did I react to that scene? I turned around, smiled, and resumed conversing with my fiancé. I realized that I didn't need to gloat at the woman's plight, and was glad I had personally responded to attacks against me. Karma had spoken on my behalf.